All right, guys, I think I'm live, although I look super blurry right now. So hopefully, hopefully I don't look so blurry on your end. Um, but it's a privilege to go live in this group. So I hope you have time to jump on, to ask some questions. I want our dialogue to be super valuable and productive for all of you fellow real estate investors. And yeah, my picture all of a sudden went super grainy. So I hope you can see well enough and definitely hope you can hear. So first, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about me and my background and why this topic tonight is so near and dear to my heart. And then I want to just share a little bit of the information that I know around SBA loans and how that might impact you as an investor. And then I want you guys to ask questions or to brainstorm and to get excited about the possibilities with me and with each other here. And if you guys are popping on and watching this, please comment so that I know that you're watching, because I would love to say hi and I would love for this to be somewhat interactive. And let me just set the tone that I have 4 kids in the kitchen next door trying to cook a meal. And if something crazy happens or they start knocking on my door, even though they know they're not supposed to, my apologies in advance for that. So my name is Dr. Sherry Flewellen. I am first and foremost a real estate investor. My husband and I have been buying properties since 2007. That was our first year that we jumped into real estate. We bought our first home and our first investment property all within the course of about 3 months. At the time that I started real estate investing, I had just joined the Air Force as an active duty psychologist. And my husband was working at a nowhere job, not going to get anywhere, wasn't going to take him anywhere. And that was like the first 3 years of our real estate investing career. I was in the military, he was doing his kind of piddly job, and we were just kind of feeling things out. But 2010 is the year that things took a different trajectory. And I'd like to share with you why that is the case and how the SBA fit into that. So as a psychologist, I was having babies, growing the family thing, and I knew that the Air Force was not conducive to me having a family where I could be home with them and not get deployed. So I transitioned out of the military and started and launched a private practice. So as I was contemplating that, I knew for sure that it made sense that I buy a building and not have to, rent and pay for somebody else's dreams. So that got me started. Okay, what can I buy? How am I going to do this? And I don't even remember how I even got on the road of looking into an SBA supported loan, but I did. And I just kind of jumped in with 2 feet and found that I was able to get a house in our town. It was a house that I figured I could convert into commercial space, and I did successfully. But I bought that through an SBA loan or an SBA-backed loan. So what that meant back then, back in 2010, was that I was able to buy a property that was an investment property for my business that was 10% down and not 25% down. So at the time, I think the purchase price in the property was like 122,000. That same property I still own, and it's now worth about 250,000. But at the time, it was about 120,000. And so I was able to buy that property with 10% down, which was doable. Like, I could figure out how to come up with 10 to 15 grand. I would not have been able to figure out how to come up with like 30 grand. So getting an SBA loan for me at that point was critical in the progression of my future. Now I had a brick and mortar business, right? I was a psychologist. I had a practice. I was starting to hire other therapists to work for me. And so having a brick and mortar business was the vehicle that got me the SBA loan. And that hasn't changed as of today. The SBA still has the expectation and the requirement that it work with owner users in a business where the owner operates the business. So that provides some exclusions, but today I want to talk about and get you thinking about how to get creative as a real estate investor. How could I still use the SBA? So I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys in this group probably do investing and have another business. And if you are watching this, I see 7 eyeballs. Hopefully we'll get more as we go. But if you are seeing this and you have another job, whether it's full-time or part-time, please put them in the comments because I would love to speak a little bit more specifically about your guys' situation, because that's how this is going to be the most helpful, is if we can specifically brainstorm around exactly your situation. So, but at the time, again, I was a psychologist. I am still a psychologist. I had a brick and mortar business. I was launching a practice, and so I was able to buy a property with an SBA-backed loan. So then, as I owned the practice for about 10 years, I sold it a couple of years ago. But through the time that I had my brick and mortar business, so I bought the one SBA property, and I outgrew that space within about a year and a half. And so I was able to negotiate the property right next door. I was able to buy that seller financing, and which I still own also. Then we outgrew both of those spaces, so that I found a third place that we ended up by getting a really good deal on and doing some renovations there. And then we outgrew that third space, and then we went to a fourth space. Okay, I'm gonna put a pause on the fourth space for a moment because Linda, thank you for commenting. She is a bookkeeper. Fantastic. So the cool thing about being a bookkeeper, and totally correct me if this is not your case, but the bookkeeper, I mean, you can do your work from anywhere, right? Like our bookkeeper for my husband and my businesses, she spends half her year sailing with her boyfriend in Mexico. Pretty cool life. Totally, totally love it. And then the other part of the year, I live in Wyoming, the least populated state in the entire nation, and she lives the other part of the year here. So we do get to interact in person, and that's how I kind of got to know her. But being a bookkeeper, you can be location independent unless you have a big team, and then maybe you kind of need to be with them, or maybe as a bookkeeper you actually work for somebody else and they want you in the office. But as we talk, I want you to start thinking creatively about how could you create a space potentially for your business. And this is just one way of using SBA loan, but how could you create a space for your business for a period of time where you could legitimately use it for, bookkeeping, or another type of job or side hustle that you have, and maybe rent out some of the other space so that you could acquire the property with some of the value adds that the SBA is offering right now. Okay, so back to my story. So our fourth property, so all of these properties, 3 properties that we had purchased for my brick and mortar business, I had bought residential properties and just worked with the city, rezoned them, so we could work in them. But now I'm like, okay, we got a large team. I was up to about 16 employees, and I was like, okay, we need a larger building, and there was an actual commercial building that came available. And so it was about a little over 6,000 square feet, all in one level. It was used in the past for a children's medical clinic. So it had a ton of offices. This square hallway that you could literally run laps around. And then all around there, they had all these offices that had sinks and cabinets in it, because you can imagine going to a medical clinic when you go see your doctor, they got the little sink that they have to wash their hands and get all sanitary before they touch you. So I bought this building, or I wanted to buy this building, but it was like I think it was listed a little over $900,000. And I'm like, right, 25% of that is what is common around here for an investment loan. I didn't have, $200,000 to $250,000 laying around in my bank account. So I thought, oh my gosh, well, let me revisit the SBA loan option. And so I contacted a couple banks to figure out locally or semi-locally. I think the one I landed on, it was out of Colorado, just a couple hours from here. So I never had to meet them because you can do all of this stuff virtually, even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we could do it virtually. And so I found an SBA lender, talked with them, gave them all the information, passed them all of the like stacks of, seriously, it was like, this much paper that I had to pass on to them, all the tax returns. And when you got more than one business, like that's a lot of work. But what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to get into this property for just 10%. So it was only 80 some thousand. And so I was able to cobble together 80 some $1,000. I borrowed some from my parents. Fortunately, they were willing to loan me a little bit of the money, and that worked for the bank. They didn't really care where it came from. And so I was able to buy our first really substantial building, because everything we've owned and bought up to this point was not a commercial property. We did have fourplexes and lower, and they were all residential. And so it was exciting to get our first commercial property. Okay, so that's kind of the story of how I ended up getting a couple SBA-backed loans. The cool thing that has happened, just as a little plug for if you have a brick and mortar business, or even a virtual business like a bookkeeper, what I realized was so valuable about having a business is that the money that comes in from the business can support the real estate or buy the real estate. So I don't know if you guys have heard and watched, the Ray Kroc documentary about McDonald's, or if you've read any of the things about McDonald's or any of their quotes from the CEO. But really, they don't consider themselves a hamburger flipping company. They consider themselves a real estate company, because they know that is where the real wealth and the profit lies. And I know you guys are part of this whole community, right? So you know that wealth is in real estate. Yes, there's other ways you can accumulate your wealth, but real estate, in my belief, is one of the most stable and predictable ways of gaining wealth. And so when I sold my practice in 2019, I still had 4 properties. I no longer had my business, but I did still have the properties that my business bought. And I still have them today. I still have the money that's generated by them, the cash flow. I still got the increase in appreciation that they're providing. I still get a benefit every year from the depreciation on my tax return. All of our tenants are paying down our principal. So I'm getting all of the benefits of real estate investing. But because I had this other business for a period of time, the other business was was part of the exact reason why we were able to grow our portfolio a little bit bigger, and it funneled money in to buy the real estate. Now, since COVID, the government is printing money like it has no value, and I guess we won't necessarily go into our beliefs around the lack of value that the dollar must really have at this point. But what the government has done, if you haven't heard, is they have chosen to help support small business owners, which I don't, okay, I'll take it. Like, it's there, so I guess I'll take it. They have chosen to support the small business owners a number of ways, and one of the ways has been through the SBA. And so we didn't even know this until it happened. It was enacted and happened from one of the relief bills. And it was that the SBA, the government, had provided money through the CARES Act to pay for all of the SBA loans in existence at that moment, to pay for their monthly mortgages. And they did this for 6 months, and they did it twice. I think the second time was maybe just for 4 months. So that was a total of 10 months. And guys, this isn't just like what your bank may have done, where they send you a letter and say, hey, we're willing for you to not have to pay your mortgage for a few months, put it in forbearance. So it's, kind of putting it on pause, and then we'll pick it up again later. It wasn't in forbearance. They actually literally paid our mortgage for us for 10 months. And with our large commercial building, that was like a 6 grand ish mortgage payment. And on the first building, I think it's like, I don't know, $900 or maybe 1,000 or something. So we ended up getting about $7,000 times 10, $70,000 paid on our SBA loans because of all of the CARES Acts and all the things that had enacted. Well, the cool thing is, even though maybe you can't get 10 months paid, the SBA specifically has a program right now, or has specifically changed their SBA guidelines in a few ways that encourages small business owners to take advantage of the SBA loan system. So we still got Linda, hopefully on here. Kolab, hopefully I have pronounced that correctly. If you want to drop what it is that you do, maybe you're a full-time real estate investor, maybe you have another job or multiple jobs, as a lot of times we do as entrepreneurs, because we have so many things that we're interested in. It's hard sometimes to nail it just down to one thing. And I know there's more eyeballs on here. I can see you. So if you guys want to put in the comments what you do as well, that would be really helpful. And as I'm talking, I want you to be brainstorming and thinking about how could I possibly use the SBA loan for my own situation. And so I'm going to shift in a little bit. So hang on, I'm going to shift in a little bit to what if you don't have a brick and mortar business and it doesn't make sense for you to force your business into a brick and mortar space? Like, is there still an opportunity? And there is, and I want to talk about that a little bit, because that was mind blown for me when I was talking to the largest SBA lender in the United States, well, in the world really, because SBA is the United States, right? So, and they're this bank, I was talking with the VP of the SBA division, and you know, he's like, hey, there's like these specific things you can do as a real estate investor that still fall under the umbrella of what you can do. So that is really cool. So hang on, because I'm going to get to that. Where was I? Funneling money into buying properties. And oh yeah, so we had our mortgages paid for 10 months, but what the SBA is doing right now is they have this pot of money that once it runs out, it runs out. But it either, you know, whichever comes first, it either runs out or September 30th. For all of the new loans, SBA loans that are administered by September 30th, they're doing a few things that they've never done before. One is they will pay your first 3 months of loans. 3 months, up to $9,000 per month. So if you've got a smaller loan, it will pay the whole fee or the whole mortgage payment for you for the first 3 months, which is pretty cool, because we all know that once we get into a property, there's always expenses on the front end. Oh my gosh, this isn't working, or I've got to, you know, if it's a business, you know, if you're putting your brick and mortar business in there, you know that, like, okay, now we've got to change signs. I need new business cards. I've got to, you know, hire somebody to change all the information on social media and our website to a new address. There's always expenses that come up with moving. So it's cool that they provide 3 months of free mortgages on the front end. Another thing they're doing is that when you get an SBA loan, kind of like if you are in the military or you've been in the military and you are eligible for a VA loan on a home, the VA has what's called a funding fee. It just basically means it's an extra cost on the front end of the loan that ultimately pays for the administration of that loan. So there's stuff that the Veterans Administration has to do, people they have to pay to do the paperwork to make sure that you get your VA funding for your home. Well, the SBA kind of does the same thing, right? They've got a whole bunch of people they have to pay. And so they have this SBA funding fee, which is just tagged on to the total amount of your mortgage that you end up paying on throughout the life of your loan. But this year, because again of COVID and the CARES Act, they have waived the funding fee. So instead of it being anywhere from 1 to 3.5%, which is typically the range that it is, they are waiving it. Big old goose egg, 0% added to your loan. So that's pretty cool. Robert, you said you're retired. That is awesome. But does retired really mean retired? Maybe you're retired from kind of a full-time brick and mortar and now you have the joy and the freedom to do all the real estate investing that you want in the world, which is an amazing position to be in. So congrats to you. Um, but to get back, so there's the 3 months of SBA loan funds. There is no fee for the funding. And also, the other thing that they're doing unique that they've never done before is, as I said in my examples, I needed to bring 10% cash to the closing table for an SBA loan. But the SBA is doing some creative financing. Imagine that, the government bureaucracy being creative. But they're doing some creative financing around allowing you to bring 10% equity to the table rather than 10% cash. Now, how that actually looks to you or looks in the whole transaction, that would be something that you need to work out with your SBA lender. But chances are it's probably going to be if you've got equipment. So let's say you have a lawn care company and you've got a couple trucks and you've got a couple trailers and you've got all of the big riding lawnmowers and the weed whackers and all of that sort of stuff. If that equipment is worth $10,000 or more, you're probably just pledging the equity from that to replace the 10% cash that they normally would have. So it's an opportunity for you to be able to access the loan with not having to inject cash on the front end, which is pretty cool because as investors, one of the metrics that's important in our business is return on your investment, ROI. And there's different ways of calculating ROI, but one of my favorite is cash on cash ROI. And so that is where you take the amount of cash that you have put into a project or an investment, a real estate investment, and you measure that against the amount of cash that you get out on an annual basis. So tell me, if you put zero cash into an investment, what is your cash on cash ROI? Somebody want to put that in the comments? What is your return, your ROI, your cash on cash ROI on an investment when you have zero of your own money in the investment? Oh, I see your eyeballs. Okay. I would love it if you guys interacted with me. Oh, 100, yes, Linda, but she said 100% ROI, and let me tweak that a bit. It's infinite. It's infinite, really, because it's zero, and when you have zero, there's no ways you can actually divide and multiply with zero or divide with zero. But yeah, you're on the right track. It's limitless. It's endless. It's amazing. So think about being able to get a loan where you have no money in and you're just using some of your existing equity. Okay. So those are the three things right now SBA is doing differently than they've ever done before. And when I heard that in a training that I was in a couple weeks ago for commercial investing and commercial real estate, that's like my mind was blown. I'm like, this is so exciting. Okay. Now, let's get creative on ways in which you as an investor, if you don't have a business that's brick and mortar, that maybe you could consider using an SBA loan for. Now, I know that there's probably a lot more ways than this, and I honestly cannot take credit for coming up with these ideas because this was Jeff, the SBA, the VP of SBA lending for this large bank. These were ideas that he fed us that were feasible. So it's directly from the mouth of the guy that, signs on the dotted line for approving the SBA lending. And so these are some of the things, but keep in mind, you can buy real estate if it's owner occupied and if you're, as the owner, you are using it. It's got to be a legit business. So here's a couple of the things that he suggested that are legit businesses. One of them, which is a super popular thing right now to invest in, is storage units. So the SBA apparently considers a storage unit facility as a business. So and the cool thing is with SBA, it's not only just buying existing real estate. You can actually use an SBA loan for construction. So if you found land and you wanted to build a storage facility, you could potentially do that with SBA funding. Pretty cool, right? Another thing that they suggested is an RV park. Now, a mobile home park, they do not consider as a business, but an RV park. Now, they said part of the stipulation is it can't be one of those like tiny home parks where people with RVs come and they stay for long periods of time. It needs to be a true RV park where the majority of the tenants are and guests are coming and going. My husband and I, we have a camper, we have 4 kids. We love to just hit the road. We love going to KOA sometimes because we know they're predictable. They're going to have a washer and dryer. They're going to have a pool. They're going to be well maintained. And so that seems to be kind of what the SBA is looking for regarding an RV park. And so, but that's an option. Other options to think about is I have known people that have purchased a home and have used it as a group home for those that have a mental disability or an emotional disability, or maybe a halfway house. I've known investors who have had a real passion for different populations, such as convicts who have really wanting to rehabilitate. And so they will buy a property and run it as a halfway house and as an opportunity for folks to kind of get rehabilitated back into the community. That might qualify for SBA funding. Or how about a home for teen women who are pregnant? There could be a whole business around there where you've got maybe a couple mother counselors who live in the house and kind of support them, provide education, some life skills. There's some really cool things you could think about to be able to buy real estate and to be able to help your community and make the world a better place. Other kinds of facilities. I know I've got a family member who owns a nursing home. That should work, right? And then they bought an apartment building right next door. And in and of itself, an apartment building or a multifamily is not considered an active investment for the SBA. It's considered passive investment, which is why, as real estate investors, we love it, right? Passive. But so what the nursing home, what my family did is they had the nursing home, then they bought an apartment building, but they converted the apartment building into assisted living that was able to be supported from the nursing home. So I would venture to say that an assisted living community is a business. Now, this isn't just my definition. This isn't just, well, Sherry said so. You would need to have a conversation with the SBA lender to verify that your plan and your ideas of what your business is really consistent with what their criteria are. But, right? I mean, now, do you need to be the administrator of the nursing home? Not necessarily. You could have a partner. You could, already have a CEO in mind for running that. There's just a lot of creativity to be had on how to use this money that the government has already dog-eared for specifically investing in real estate based on some sort of business model. Now, another critical piece to think about in this whole plan is that the SBA will allow you to buy a property and to rent some of it out to other businesses or for other purposes. So think about this. Say that you are a bookkeeper you find this fantastic property that maybe is a mixed use. So on the main floor, maybe there's 1,000 square feet of office space. On the second floor, if it's mixed use, maybe there's like 3 apartments or 2 apartments on the second floor. As long as you are occupying 51%, I believe is the number that the SBA has identified. As long as you are occupying 51% of the building for your owner occupied business, you can rent out the rest of the space. So what if you, now again, so let me just put a disclaimer out there. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lender. I am an investor. I am also a realtor, so I do have that knowledge that I'm speaking from. So I work with loans every week. But I'm just providing some ideas for you guys to think about. So you need to take it to your local professionals to double check that this stuff is going to work for you. But I feel like my job here is to inspire you guys to think creatively on how to use some resources in a different way. So imagine that you bought this this mixed use building, and you took the main floor as office space for bookkeeping, 1,000 square feet. Now maybe you're thinking, oh my gosh, as a bookkeeper, I only need like 200 square feet and maybe another desk, for my assistant to work with me on. I don't need a whole 1,000 square feet, but hang with me here for a minute, okay? So imagine that you bought this property, and on the second floor, you've got 2 apartments, and there's this little storage closet between the 2 apartments. So if you occupied the main floor and the little storage unit on the second floor, that would be over 50%, right? I would think so. And so what if the income from those 2 apartments on the second floor were enough to pay your mortgage and all of your expenses for that unit, that whole building? Now you might be thinking, well, Sherry, why would I want to do that? Like I like funneling money into a cash flowing property. But what if after a year or maybe 2, that space didn't really work for you anymore, and so you moved out of it and you rented out the main floor to another business? Now you got into a property with 10% or less. You had your mortgage paid for you, maybe even a little, then some, kind of depending on the mix. And for a whole year, so you have principal pay down, you've gained appreciation, you've gained appreciation, and now you can bring in a tenant that is giving you the cash flow that you were desiring. Now, here's the caveat. I know from personal experience that I own 2 SBA loan buildings right now, neither of which I occupy anymore. So I bought these buildings. I did occupy them because I needed to. Literally for my business, I needed to. And that was part of the requirements of the SBA. But I am not aware of any requirements that I have to occupy that building for the entirety of the loan. I've never been challenged on the fact that I no longer occupy with my business these 2 properties. And I'm not sure that anywhere in the SBA paperwork there is a specific time requirement. Now, I would encourage you, if you are looking at, buying a property for a certain specific time frame for your owner-occupied building or owner-occupied business, check into that, because I wouldn't want you to get in trouble if there is such language with the SBA. I'm just saying that I am unaware that there is that language, and it hasn't been a problem for me. Now, I know on the residential side with lenders, just again, because I'm a realtor and based on experience, I know that for like if you were to buy a 4-plex and you were to live in one of the units, it would be considered an owner-occupied home loan. And the expectation is that when you live in there, that you are going to live in there at least a year. I mean, that's kind of like the unwritten rule. Most lenders don't have that specific criteria anywhere in writing, but it is kind of an understanding that your expectation is you are going to live there. It's not just lip service, and you're intending to live there at least for a substantial period of time, which seems to be at least about a year. So use all of that information however you would like. But there is an opportunity to get into properties without having to, foot the entire bill for space that you may not really need long term. Now I see there's still eyeballs watching this video. So if you guys have any specific questions, any creative thoughts about how you could find space to use the SBA loan for, please, now's the time to throw them in the chat, throw them in the comments. I would love to kind of expand our thinking about what's possible so we can increase our return on investment, because we are decreasing the cash that we have to inject into a property on the front end. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to think and to type. What questions or ideas or thoughts do you have that you can share with us all? Because when we are in a community like this, where we've got so many varieties of experience, of expertise, of wisdom, of life experience, being able to share and being able to learn from each other and being open to feedback is so incredibly critical. Just being in communities is really, really the way to excel your learning and your trajectory to your success in life. So, do you have any creative ideas based on what I've said, or do you have questions that I could either answer or research to get the answer if I don't know it right away? I know there's a little bit of a lag between me talking and between you guys writing, so I'm going to give you a little bit more time. All right, so if you have any questions, you have any comments, anything, especially for those of you guys who are going to catch this on the replay or catch this as a recording, feel free to put your comments below. I'm quite confident that it's going to tag me and it'll pop up on my notifications, and so I'll see your comment and we can dialogue a little bit. Part of what I do and I get excited about in all of the work that I do is just being able to get other people excited about moving forward in their dreams, especially around real estate investing. And I love getting people to start thinking outside of the box and to expand their mind and their capabilities and the possibilities. So please comment, and I would love to hear it. And if you want to give me feedback on how valuable this was or not, maybe you're like, snoozer Sherry, this really wasn't that interesting, nothing that I could take out of this that really could benefit me in my real estate investing life. Give me that too, because that's great feedback. So thank you guys so much for watching this, whether it was live and you participated, or whether you were just live and passive, or whether you're watching this as a recording. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and thank you to the Real Estate Club Unemployables, because my understanding is from what Alex May said, she's like, hey Sherry, you're actually the first one, your first member here who we've let do a live. So I feel super privileged to be given this opportunity just to share my knowledge and my excitement and my passion. So I thank you to them for giving me this opportunity. And if these things go well, where we have an opportunity to schedule some more deep learning on topics, I think that would be potentially amazing. So give them your feedback as well on what you thought about this just as a concept, and maybe some other topics that you would love to hear about. And they can maybe bring some more to you. So, guys, I hope you have a fantastic Thursday night or whatever night you're watching this. And, best to you on your real estate adventure. I am confident that no matter what decisions you choose to make, you are going to be better off for it because you're either going to be adding to your wealth, building strategy over long term, or you just learned what not to do and how to do things differently next time. So thanks, guys. This is Dr. Sherry, and we'll see you soon.